Joining us now on the line is our legal analyst, Joe DiGenova. How are you, Joe?
Just doing great, guys.
All right, so I got a question for you. I see this story yesterday, and I sort of thought you'd be the perfect guy to fill me in on what it really means. In an assertion of same-sex marriage rights, Attorney General Eric Holder is applying a landmark Supreme Court ruling to the Justice Department, basically saying that same-sex marriages will be, benefits will be afforded on the federal level everywhere that they can have a say. What does this mean? What are the implications, and are there complications that come with this?
Well, it means that the legislating by executive order is now throughout the executive branch of the United States. The Attorney General does have the authority to take legal positions on behalf of the United States government, and Eric Holder has taken the legal position that they will now treat people equally in all legal proceedings, and it means, for example, that gay couples, even in states where their marriages are not recognized, will not be forced to testify against one another if they have a marriage that is recognized in another state. So it's a cultural and legal shift that is underway, and they're bound and determined to see it through to the end.
So if you're a same-sex couple and you have legally married in a state where that is recognized, the federal government will then honor that as far as all federal proceedings are concerned. What if you're a same-sex couple and you're not in a state where same-sex marriage is recognized?
Well, they apparently are going to recognize that right whether it exists in that state or not, because it is in a federal court or in a federal proceeding, and by regulation, they're going to say that those rights are going to be recognized. So it is a clear confrontation that has been set with individual states which have chosen not to recognize gay marriage.
Joe DiGenova, yesterday, a leak came out about a brand new book by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. It's called HRC, about none other than Hillary Rodham Clinton, our next president, as soon as the coronation is done. Get this, though. General David Petraeus, very well-respected man, he says, he's quoted in this book by saying she'd make a tremendous president, which is certainly his opinion, but I thought you might take issue with his reasoning behind this. He said that Benghazi is an example of her great leadership. I'm quoting now, like a lot of great leaders, her most impressive qualities were most visible during tough times. In the wake of the Benghazi attacks, for example, she was extraordinarily resolute, determined, and controlled. Joe DiGenova?
I have no idea where in the world General Petraeus is talking about, because the record is inconsistent with every word that he spoke. Her performance was abysmal. She did absolutely nothing. She was uninvolved in the resolution of the crisis and was a party to a failure to properly protect the embassy. She did nothing to expand. In fact, on her watch, security was reduced in Tripoli and Benghazi under her watch. She did nothing to assist on the night of the attack. In fact, Gregory Hicks said that when she called, he thought she was going to provide an answer to what was being done to help them. And in fact, her statement was, "What do you want me to do?" The issue here is quite simple. After General Petraeus had his incident where he was caught in the affair with the writer, Hillary Clinton called him and commiserated with him and encouraged him. He became very friendly with her as a result of that. And what you are seeing in this book is a brilliant pincer maneuver by Hillary Clinton to deal with Petraeus, who had it within his power to hurt her very badly. But the truth is, Petraeus has been completely neutralized as a legitimate speaking public figure on issues like this because of what he did to himself. And this is just him saying thank you to her.
Wow. So they bonded over a sexual scandal, and that's enough to make her get the Petraeus endorsement.
Wow, that's exactly right.
This is how great leaders are made, Joe DiGenova.
Yeah.
We've been watching this story that has to do with Medrick Cecil Mills, 77-year-old guy, collapsed across the street from a fire station. People went across the street and said, "Hey, can you come help this guy?" The fire department didn't respond. Right. There were myriad problems. Well, the Washington Post did a really interesting article over the weekend in which they examined this cadet program, which really, it seems to be more of a social program designed to help underprivileged youth. But the problem is apparently ultimately, the only way now that you can get into the fire department is through this underprivileged youth program. And there are a lot of questions about whether or not the cadet program has been the most effective way to fill the positions at the fire department, raising a few eyebrows.
Well, this is a classic case of why the District of Columbia does not have a very good civil service. There is no ethos of public service in the District of Columbia government. There is an ethos of political job getting. This started under Marion Barry. It continues today. The middle bureaucracy and the bureaucracy, including the fire department, are political tools. They have nothing to do with competence. They have nothing to do with the provision of legitimate services to the citizens of the District of Columbia. The fire department is now one of the worst in the country. We used to have here one of the best police departments and one of the best fire departments.
Right.
The police department has improved somewhat in the last few years. It's still not where it used to be. The fire department is, of course, a disaster, and they do not provide proficient life support systems for in emergency situations. And it's not going to improve because you have incompetent leadership at every level.
We learned late last week that Kenneth Ellerby, the fire chief, apparently reached out and had a conversation with this young cadet. And shortly after this whole thing broke down, he was confronted by a reporter and said, "What did you talk to him about?" He said, "That's private." But it had nothing to do with this incident. Well, then what was it about? Well, I can't share that with you. It was private. Is that an acceptable answer, given the fact that a man died as a result of what happened?
No, of course it isn't. And Chief Ellerby is a disgrace. And in fact, if the council had any cojones, they would be investigating this and be slapping subpoenas on everybody into it. This is a very dangerous situation. What it tells you is that competence has nothing to do with the award of jobs in the District of Columbia, even in something as sensitive as life-saving activities in the emergency services area. The chief is obviously a guy who really needs to be doing something else for a living. He has qualities that don't involve leadership or any of the skills that are necessary to lead an important community service like a fire department.
But, Joe, let me ask you a legal question here, because Karen Evans, the attorney for the family who lost their father here, she was on our show Thursday morning, and she talked about the public duty doctrine here in D.C., which is sort of unique to D.C. in that the fire department has a sworn duty to protect public safety, not the safety of citizens. And because of that little strange nomenclature, the little wording in the law there in the public duty doctrine, they've been able to claim immunity in civil suits such as this. So that the families who lose a family member, they can't sue the city. That's an outrage.
That is correct, and this has been a part of D.C. law for a very, very long period of time. It comes from a different era when municipal immunity was the order of the day. Many other cities have changed their issues on this and have created types of liability that allow people to sue. The District of Columbia is way behind in this area, and it's really not surprising at all because, once again, when you look at the council of the District of Columbia and the things that they're concerned about, it's not the citizens. It's really a fascinating display of the type of corruption and incompetence at every level of government in the District of Columbia. When I was a U.S. attorney back in the 80s, people thought this was going to end at some point. It's gotten
worse. Joe DiGenova, thanks for joining us. We got to leave it there, but it is fascinating that in the city of Washington, D.C., our public servants have a sworn duty to protect the city, not to protect the city.